Okay, we can do it.
All right, welcome everyone. We're going to call our meeting to order. I understand that County Executive Ronay will be joining us soon, but we will get started now. Okay, so
So based on who I see in the room, it appears we have a quorum, so I'm just going to take attendance. Chair Habiba Grimes,
Present.
the Honorable Mayor Annette Blackwell, Stephen Cavanis is not here, Reverend Chalker,
Here.
Janice Contreras,
Here.
Colleen Cotter,
Here.
Dr. Heidi Gullett could not join us today. Marsha Maccabee also is not here. Dr. Maudlin, isn't here yet. Levine Ross.
Here.
Glenn is not here. Glenn Shoemate, that is. Yanela Sims,
Here.
Eddie Taylor,
Here.
and Sheila Wright.
Here.
Thank you. Clerk Byrd is going to now offer us a moment of silence and reflection.
This is a time of year when many of us pause, we reflect, and embrace our families and friends, and think about our blessings and how fortunate we are despite the many challenges we may have faced and continue to face. And although we are grateful, it is also the time of year we sometimes silently pledge to be better or to do better. And yet beyond the comfort of our homes, tragedy, violence, and brutality seem to engulf us. Whether in our communities, in Ukraine, or in Israel, Palestine, the disparities, brutality, and violence can cause us to feel overwhelmingly hopeless. So today, as we gather to continue our most important work, let's take a moment to simply think about the tenets of our faith and to reflect upon the necessary courage as we seek guidance to overcome our fears, doubts, and the trauma so many of us face each day. We must continue to be purpose-driven, relentless, and focus on solutions so that every one of us is a winner. We can just take a moment.
Thank you. Clerk Byrd, that was a powerful statement of reflection and silence, and thank you for taking the time to give it voice. I've been certainly, like many of you, weighed down with heaviness as I've been bearing witness to the violence in the world and the tragedy unfolding in Israel and Palestine, and I'm reminded each day of the importance of living out those values and being an example to others and to those we serve for peace, for hope, for community, for care. So thank you. With County Executive not present yet, I'm happy to give my update, or shall I look to the Chief of Staff?
Should we do public comment first?
Thank you.
Okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just very quickly, since our last meeting, we have not received any public comments submitted via email to our email address. And today's in-person meeting, as you know, is open to the public. But I don't believe we've received any requests for public comments.
So I'll just make this offer as a plea to the community to please share your thoughts, your questions, your insights. This body is eager to hear from the community and looking for opportunities to be of service to the needs of the community around the legislation of racism as a public health crisis. So please do share your thoughts and questions. All right, with that, I'll say a few words and we'll ask the staff to take it. That sounds great. Thank you. All right, so Clerk Byrd has graciously offered the suggestion that we introduce ourselves. We have a new member of County Executive Ronane's staff with us, so I'll invite you to introduce yourself and then we can just round robin.
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for letting me join you and listen to the conversation today. My name is Eric Janis. I am the executive's new chief of staff. I've been on the job about 3 months now. Prior to that, I spent a decade or so as a deputy county administrator at Franklin County down in Columbus. I previously worked for the mayors of Columbus and Cleveland as well. Started my career here 26 years ago in Cuyahoga County over at Children's Services. So happy to be back in a way, and appreciate the effort of this group, and look forward to hearing the discussion. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
I'll introduce myself and share a little bit about myself. I'm Habiba Rashid Grimes. I'm the chair, of course, of this body, but my day-to-day work is in serving young people with complex mental health needs at PEP, Positive Education Program, lifelong Northeastern Ohioan, and mom to 2 little boys who live with us here in Cleveland and benefiting from the care and concern of our community members.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Colleen Cotter. In addition to serving on this committee, I'm the Executive Director of the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You're Annette Blackwell and you're Maple Heights.
See you. Yep.
Eddie Taylor, President and CEO of Taylor.
Nice to meet you.
Ken Chalker. I'm the retired senior pastor of the University Circle United Methodist Church in Cleveland. Been in the downtown area for 32 years.
I'm Sheila Wright. For this meeting, I'm with Frontline Development Group.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Janice Contreras. I'm the CEO of the Hispanic Center for Economic Development and currently the developer for the Centro Villa 25 project happening on West 25th in the Clark Fulton neighborhood.
Well, I'm Levine Ross, Senior Policy Advisor for County Council.
Good to see you. Yeah.
I'm Janelle Sims, Ohio State Director at CIU Local 1.
Good to see you as well. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so I'll share a few updates on my behalf as we await the county executive. So first I wanted to start with a word of gratitude. This is my first meeting as chair of this body. I'm extremely proud to serve with you all, to provide some leadership, and to co-lead with you all. So thank you for the vote of confidence that puts me in this seat. And I'm excited for us to get to work together on some goals and objectives that we share in common. Moving things forward on behalf of CASE, on behalf of our citizens here in Cuyahoga County and our shared purpose. I've been saying to folks, nothing happens without collective work, and I've been very grateful to share in that work with you all over the last few years. As we move into our agenda, I did want to share that we have some departures from the case, sadly, understandably. And I'll start with mentioning former member Randall McShepard, who has departed, did not choose to continue for a reappointment to the case. Such a tremendous leader in our community, and I'm sure continuing to be a leader in our community. He leaves us with a leadership need for the Quality of Life Subcommittee, but did really important leadership there during his time with us. So I extend my gratitude to him on behalf of the case and invite you all to give him a pat on the back when you see him for his leadership. I also spoke with Marsha Maccabee just before this meeting, and she has shared with me her consent to share her intention to resign from the case. It is not for a lack of interest in what we are doing, as you are surely aware, but we can offer her our congratulations because the Urban League is being, their national conference will take place here in Cleveland in 2025, and we can only imagine the work that entails. It includes a youth summit that sounds like it's going to be a substantial and beautiful experience for our community and our youth, which you all know I'm passionate about. So we give her our best regards as well. I think those are the two.
Yes, and I've talked extensively with member Maccabee as well, and I'm actually helping her in part of the Urban League with their guild and their volunteerism. And she is committed not only to this organization, although not in an official capacity, but also committed to our new chair, Habiba Grimes, and having success. So she knows we will be calling on her regularly, although she won't be physically sitting in a seat. So.
Thank you. And as you all know, she has been leading and co-leading the work of the city, and I think there's a powerful example there for us to be observing and part of and learning from as we continue our work forward. So I'm very, very grateful for her for the offer of continued thought leadership with us and for the example she's already set, quite frankly. So.
I think if I may, Chair, also add, I want to publicly thank former Chair Eddie Taylor, as well as in her absenteeism, Dr. Heidi Gullett, who both have graciously recommitted, as well as Janice Contreras, who has recommitted to serving another term with us. So we thank you for agreeing to do that and look forward to your continued support.
Thank you. The only other comments I wanted to share was just some vision that I've been thinking about as I've been connected with Clerk Byrd and Subcommittee Chair Glenn Shoemate and thinking about the work ahead and trying to continue the legacy that Chair Taylor leaves with me. And some of what my hope is that we will be able to do as a body is engage in some strategic planning work together and really start to think about how we create some goals and targets for our work and engage in some shared work around those goals and targets and secure facilitation for some process around that so that the work, we can start to see it and see what we're focused on and our hopes are for moving this legislation forward and how we might measure ourselves against those goals and targets that we might set. So I did just want to share a little of that with you all today and get any perspective. Welcome, County Executive.
Hello, Chair. Nice to see everybody.
Good to see you. And so if there are thoughts that you have in response to that, certainly welcome an opportunity to talk about that more, and we can certainly do that as part of our subcommittee conversation as well.
So Executive Rooney, AKA Chris.
I'm looking around. It's a great turnout today. See everybody.
Do you have any sort of a message or comments you'd like to share?
You know what? Catch me on the fly. We call them Manic Mondays around here. It's been a busy Monday. Freaky Fridays and Manic Mondays. But I guess I just want to thank this team for keeping a good thing going. And I think our leadership succession's been good. Thank you both for Eddie, our past chair, and our new chair. I think you guys managed into a new year with a new executive team really well, and frankly educated me more on what this group's trying to do. I still feel that, and I want to thank Clerk Bird for staffing this effort. We probably can stack hands on renewed purpose next year and where we're going with things. And I feel like that is good work ahead. Relative to leadership on this effort, I think people do look to the county to be the lead. And so I guess what I would always hope for in an administration changeover is that there's a seamless transition of the work ahead. And this group has done just a fantastic job, I think, in 2023. As 2024 goes, what can we lean in to do even more? And this has been a year to maybe just keep things going, but I think in the year ahead, I'm very much interested in where we're going to take this. It feels like everything that when you're really in a big audacious task, how do you boil some things down to some tangible things that we can get done and deliver together that give people confidence that this group should grow? And that comes to my mind, as I'm thinking about the many issues presenting us in town, whether it's matters of justice, whether it's matters of climate, whether it's matters of housing. Any one of you dabble in any one of those things at any given time, but we all know the drill. What are 3 things we can point to that we got done together? And that's kind of what I think maybe looking ahead, working with all of you, I think we might want to focus on is where are some things that we can make tangible deliverables happen soon, So that's kind of observations you're looking back. Thank you for the work you put in and looking forward to growing our work together, but focusing on some things that we can tangibly deliver together. That's kind of where I come. One other thing, sorry, give me the mic. This is what happens with the county exec. It goes on and on. I was influenced this year, and I think it relates pretty directly to this group. I was influenced by a visit that I took to Hennepin County, Minnesota. It was eye-opening in terms of how they're handling. Lenore, I'm looking out at you with the work you do in our DEIA world, but I think you've heard me say at Cabinet. Hennepin focuses very specifically on disparity reduction. And where I thought that was a really interesting model or case study is, I think we all know that everywhere you go, in all of our sister metros throughout the United States, we've got work to do on DEIA endeavors. But those that are focused, maybe it goes back to this issue of focusing on a few things. Where is the space of work So we're not boiling the ocean, but we're focused on some things we know we can get done. And I was taken by that visit because they very tangibly look at where there is measurable disparity that they can move the needle on, and they get back in terms of progress and performance measures. I'm not saying that this group has to do all of that, but maybe we focus our effort on where are we working to reduce disparity. It gets back to that 2 or 3 things where we can show tangible results. That's kind of what I got, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I certainly feel a good alignment and synergy with those comments and desires for this body's work. So I'll open it to you all if you have questions or comments for the county executive along these lines. Welcome.
I wasn't thinking of that in particular, but I was thinking before this meeting as I was looking at the agenda and thinking about should we be focused on in the coming year. It strikes me that I totally agree, like have something that's relatively narrow so we can make some discernible change. And I see things coming from 2 different directions. There are the things where county leadership would identify, we're working on these things and this committee can be helpful to move this particular thing forward. And then on the flip side, where we identify from the community, county, we need the county to do these things to, and so framing it and whether it's that disparity reduction or some other frame that help, but still keeping it open enough so that things can come from those 2 different directions. Because we're sort of community voice, right? We're representative in some way of the community, so we should be able to bring things to the table where we see the county could be doing some things and vice versa. Yeah. So I do like that idea. And then I guess I would put out, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, Chair, to a further agenda item, but do we have the right committees? And based on what we want to achieve, are they the right committees, or should we stagger committees and say, okay, for 6 months we're going to have these 2, and we're really diving in and then because we're not a lot of people, and so are we spread too thin? And so excellent topics and areas, and of course, but there are a million, and it can be overwhelming because racism is friggin' everywhere. Absolutely. I don't know how to do all that.
Do you mind if we riff a little bit here?
Please.
Sure. Naila's been with me on this particular endeavor of justice affairs, justice services generally. But one thing that comes to mind, Colleen, is when you mentioned that is just for everybody's edification, that there's 3 big sort of brick and mortar projects that are coming up this year, and County Council's been with us every step of the way on all 3 of them. 2 out of 3, one is kind of dealing with a need for a different kind of board of elections, which this elections work does get right down to racism as a public health crisis and engagement. I think when you talk about, I'll just use as an example, I know it's Mayor Bibb's priority as well, is getting up the voting participation in the city of Cleveland. So I'm using that just a sidebar for a second. But let me talk about the other 2 that I was thinking of. We're probably going to spend, as the public goes, well over $1 billion on brick and mortar jails and courthouses. And I've said regularly, I don't wake up in the morning thinking, gee, can I build a jail today? It's not what my calling was, but it is what we do. We will see this happen. You know this so well, given what you said. I've wanted to make a concomitant effort to all the other things that keep the jails less populated, by way of saying, what are the programs we can really lean in on that keep people out of jail that don't need to be there? And I kind of brought this up before, but it's something that maybe this committee can keep an eye on, if not invest in a couple of initiatives. Again, legal aid, you know this so well, but the bail project. few of you have been on the leadership of the unbail, work. I can keep going, but what are we doing programmatically within, while people are with us in custody, what are we doing on the reentry side? If our cabinet, some of the members of the cabinet are around this table today, but if they were here, for our next cabinet meeting next week, they'll hear me say this: we aren't just going to build a jail, we're gonna build a better justice services system. For one, we're gonna have a campus that's physically chock full of wraparound services where people have options on the way in and out. I'm getting a little bit afield here, but my vision is to have diversion offerings on the inbound and reentry services on the outbound. But whether it's work of the Bail Project or Unbail and others, I think what I'm hoping is that we utilize this moment. Yes, I can't have an inhumane situation as we have right now on Lakeside Avenue with the jail. I just can't have it. We're going to have to do better. But doing better doesn't mean just building a brand new shiny jail. Doing better means everything else but that, as it relates to the justice system. So I guess where I'm going with this is, if there's a yes, this will happen, but this should happen concurrently, what is the concurrent programming that is, we go way upstream and lower downstream, but isn't just the way of doing things. So I guess to me, CASE might be involved in that parallel pipe of programs that are keeping people from being there, and again, that's audacious, but I just think it might be space where we could pick up some of this. What are the 2-3 things we could really focus on? I think one of them is justice services, tried and true, whether it's trial services, whether it's post-custody services, Again, preaching probably to the choir here, but I'm just throwing that out as that's going to be a lot of our workspace, but I don't want it to be exclusively about the brick and mortar side of the jails, So I throw that out to this group. Sorry, riffing
Oh,
there.
please,
But
this is very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Blackwell.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would add to that, as the only mayor in this room, to compliment what our executive said. I can tell you that people are poor. We've seen that in our produce giveaway. We've seen that in our choice food pantry. We've seen that in requests to the mayor's office. I was running a little late today because I did the final interview for a gentleman that's taking a job in the service department. He doesn't have shoes to start tomorrow. Doesn't have work boots to start tomorrow. We're getting poorer, and they're getting poorer because food is higher, gas is higher, rent is higher. This is a reappraisal. 2024 is kind of a reappraisal year for Cuyahoga County. Although it's, values go up 24, pay 25. But as the property tax amendments and just remedies to this valuation happens, those that do, and believe it or not, to be a myth buster, homeownership in Maple Heights is 65%. We're not a rental community. Not a Section 8 community, which people will say, but 65%. That's worried. I'm forced with possibly putting an income tax levy, which is just making me sleepless because I know how difficult it's going to be. But I've got unions that, this is not for this conversation, I'm just trying to drive a point home. They're looking at 18% raise, and we're still the issue of having to increase our portion of the pension. People are getting poor. And so what happens with that is the hopelessness goes up, right? There's more hopelessness, and people do more in desperate ways to make it. And so it feeds this pipeline of justice. So poverty has to be, in my opinion, for this to really make sense for me, and I feel like I'm value added, has to be addressed, I think. And that's where with racism with public health, because it's a crisis. We see that as my numbers don't decrease in Black infant mortality. I mean, I sit between 3 hospitals, but I have ridiculously high numbers. And now maternal Black health, all rooted in poverty, which is a subset of racism. The other part is we need smarter cities, right? So if I had to, if you went around the table and you said, what are the two things that you need help with, Mayor Blackwell? Addressing poverty and all that comes out of that, hopelessness. And so things like go to Giant Eagle and end up in my mayor's court because they've stolen food, or catalytic converters had to put a fence around. And then that is to maternal stress and a premature baby, and then the numbers stay the same for maternal and Black infant mortality. And then smarter cities. To move them past hopeless, we need smarter students, smarter citizens to get jobs that help them make whatever level wages, because that changes constantly, right? So they have a chance. And so we know that if, I took Fortran many years ago, dating myself at John Carroll, basic, right? If that, the ifs and statements. If this is the crises, then what is the solution? The if then, I never was really good at it, but you get the whole concept of the basic programming. I think the programming should happen here. If these are the circumstances, what's the then? If you don't want more bodies in the jail and this campus, which sounds amazing, and there's diversion, and we're addressing recidivism, then we've got to get to the root of poverty, hopelessness. And we need smarter cities so that local government can really help. The reason that I avail myself to committee after committee and try to do this was I am looking for answers to take back, to be effective, and to be helpful to address those things. Not all 59 communities have the same need, and so I applaud this committee for at least having that voice for my 58 colleagues, which all have different needs. But I represent what it's like for communities of color. And again, because I want to drive it home to compliment what you said, to add to what you said. If you don't want those numbers, we've got to what? And why don't they vote? Why is it 34%? That rate for a mayoral election, person who is first line of how the apathy, because people don't care. I'm just trying to make it. There's a third of the households in Maple Heights are single, free jobs. Free jobs. So who's helping with the enrichment, the additional help that someone needs, the kid needs to make sure they have breakfast for my grandchildren who go to all the testing. How do we do that? And I'm not saying that is a heavy lift for this group, but and you do a fantastic job. I mean, you really do. Just your passion for youth and people of color and seeing it wholly. But for me, in my seat, I just want to bring to executive poverty and smarter cities is going to help me lift Maple Heights to a place where people feel hopeful, encouraged to go and vote because they believe in a system that's going to help them. And we do have to address safety services, what do they look like? Do we put the burden on the people? Services do we need? How do you balance that? And I don't know if this is the format to do that, but that is a discussion that we must have. If I enrich you, then I make them poor. There has to be a balance with that. I'm in my emotional moments right now.
Just to stay on that point, that's what I was thinking when you were speaking. The quickest way to reduce crime is a job, is an opportunity. And I think, the executive has heard me belabor about this for a while. I mean, there's investment here to support knowledge economy jobs in healthcare with the Cleveland Innovation Investment. And so that's going to be knowledge economy jobs that most of the people who are in the jails are not in a position to take advantage of. It was a smart investment from the state to hang the next round of their economy on healthcare because of the institutions that can support it. But where is the investment in an industry that people, whether they have a degree, whether they are skilled up, can jump on? The executive, I corner him in corners to talk about this. But right now, the state of Ohio has invested in an industry. It is basic production. Think of General Motors, think of LTV, think of Ford. That's what production is. Forget Hollywood, forget the red carpet, forget it. I am talking about basic handing Mr. Chalk or something. I'm talking about basic carpentry, basic electric skills. We have that here. There's $118 million worth of projects coming here to Northeast Ohio next year. 118 million, and not 10 people that look like me from Ohio will work on those jobs in a role where they can be a full-time employee. I'm not talking about extras. Everyone wouldn't be a millionaire, but I would encourage us, only because the state is, this is not what I'm here to talk about today, but only because the state is in this business, talk to your colleagues in Georgia, talk to them in Atlanta. The crime has changed. The poverty threshold has changed there, and technology follows it. So all I'm saying is, if we're in the business and we're spending money, the money has to be more than us oohing and ahhing at cars falling off the buildings. We have to be able to look and say, who was hired here on these jobs? You don't have to bring someone from LA to paint a wall. The lowest pay, the below the line talent, again, not the red carpet folks, are the transportation people, not stunt drivers, just somebody picking up Mr. Ronay. They made $5,000 a week on the last Russo Brothers movie. People don't understand these numbers. They don't understand it. I'm just saying that the wraparound is important, but I am telling you, people are creative. They're creating things in their basement. They're doing all kinds of fun things that don't translate into how they can catch an income. We're already investing in it. The county is supporting it. The city is supporting it through organizations. But where are the jobs? And I'm talking about the jobs of zip codes in Cuyahoga County.
Just to keep riffing, if that's all right to do.
This is good stuff.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm hearing both you and Mayor Blackwell loud and clear. I mean, the interrupter factor, the upstream work of jobs, education, poverty abatement. I mean, I think where else should we be but up there upstream, right? I mean, you guys, the points are right on. What I'm trying to do with this justice conversation is just not have a conversation about a jail. I don't want Cleveland.com to just give quarterly updates on where are they in Garfield with their build out. You know, I just don't. This gets us nowhere.
That's right.
And just want to use this opportunity to have a conversation about what's really important upstream. You know, so I couldn't agree with you guys more. The one thing I want to say, because you know him well, and I think it hatched at his table, but our friend in his ripe age into the 90s, Albert brought an idea to us not too long ago that was pretty cool. It's a health corps, and the idea is getting high school kids on two tracks. One, it's sort of like a city year in the school with recent college graduates who are on health career tracks, but they become mentors, almost peer mentors, but a few years older on healthy habits, but moreover, work opportunities in the health career track. So take 10 schools, 10 high schools in communities near you, and we're going in with programming for job outlooks for kids in the health industry. And also let's talk about you and yourself. And you know, it's just one small thing, but we got out of council $150,000 to get started, but it's one small thing. There's other things that we've taken a shot at that hasn't gotten there yet. You guys probably heard a little bit about the back and forth about public defenders, and probably heard about that loud and clear. I mean, we took a shot on getting a little bit more for the public defender's office on, particularly on the juvenile side. Didn't land this time, but it will next time, you know? So we're trying some things differently way upstream. But I love what you're saying about jobs and knowledge, you know, because you gotta have people with skill-ready opportunities coming out of school.
That's right.
Reverend Chalker and then Maria.
Well, at the risk of sounding like I'm singing the same hymn for the last several years on this, I couldn't agree more with the conversation that's taken place. But one of the things that I hope we talk about too is the systemic. This group is guided by statute. Is that not clear? And our function is to recommend. We can't initiate anything, we can recommend. And I think we have tried valiantly to make some recommendations. And one of the things that I think occurs is that we don't hear back what happens to the recommendations we've made. And if we could be engaged in the conversation about what happens and how can we be partners, how can we continue to amplify the effort? And it's hard. It's hard, I know, it's just trying to move a needle is very difficult. So I certainly understand that, but as we go forward with the critical things that are being raised here, it would be, I think, important for us to have a sense of what happens to the recommendations we make and how are we moving, taking steps forward in those areas.
Thank you, Reverend Chalker.
So, I agree with you, Mayor Blackwell, as well as with you, Sheila. I think everything that you both have said are right on the money. There's another component, however, that I think that, many of us in this room forget about, which is transportation. If people do not have access to get to that job, they can't go. If people have to turn down the job because their bus isn't running late enough and it's unsafe for them to get from that bus stop to their home, they cannot work those jobs. So I think, part of it is we need to look at the jobs that are available and if people can actually get to them. Like, as you know, I represent janitors. Most of them work after everybody else goes home, right? They're getting off at after midnight often. And in some cases, that transportation barrier becomes an issue for them. And it's not an easy fix just to say, we'll just have them start earlier. Because people have, children, families, other things, and other responsibilities that they need to address maybe during the day. That, a lot of us, those issues may not affect us the same way. So, access to functional transportation that expands beyond maybe just downtown or just to, certain neighborhoods. And also transportation that folks can afford. Like, they shouldn't have to spend their paycheck on a bus pass to get to and from work. So, I think when we're talking about like poverty and access to jobs, that's a component that we often forget about because everybody does not drive.
Yep.
And in addition to that, like I stated earlier, we have to look at the jobs that are available and how we can make those jobs better. Everybody does not have a degree. Everybody is not going to go into manufacturing. Everybody is, not going to take the medical track. What jobs are available and how can we make those jobs better so that the people that are taking the time to get to those jobs every day are able to sustain themselves and their families. There's so many opportunities that kind of get looked down upon because of the type of work that somebody does and this idea that because you do this job, you don't deserve ABC. How can we look at those jobs and make those jobs better with, support from our state, from the county, from employers, whatever the multiple entities are that play into that. Let's, look at the opportunities that are potentially already there so that we can make those opportunities better.
On that, I don't know if in previous meetings we've had workforce development here, maybe there's representation already around the table, but I've been pretty impressed with what they're tracking toward, and I'm thinking of Michelle or Laura on it.
Meeting with Michelle this week.
Good. I mean, maybe ask her if she'd be interested. I don't want to. It's your agenda, Chair, but they might be good discussing with us about it because I know they're trying to train for a lot of things, but that'd be good.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I think you maybe mentioned it earlier, just really, asking your constituents what they need, asking your families what they need, Cause it's easy for us to sit in this room and try to come up with ideas of what folks may need, and I think, you know, we're like-minded enough to kind of understand that. But the folks that are really experiencing the lack of transportation and the no access to decent jobs, those are the folks that we need to be asking, what do you need? What would make this situation better for you? And how can we work together to try to figure that out? Like, I am not the person to speak for someone that does not have access to transportation, because I do. I am not the person to speak for someone that is underemployed, because I'm doing okay. We need to actually talk to the people that are experiencing these issues and asking them what will make this better for you, so that we can collaborate on addressing the issues that people are actually experiencing.
Respectfully, I'd like to respond to that. One of the issues is the bus stops are too dark. My moms get up and have to be at the bus stop at 5 o'clock because their laundry shift or diet at 6 o'clock. They're too dark. So we really work with the local to get lights at the bus stop. Safer question. Okay, strategic question. You were there in Maple Heights. You have a partnership with Solon to address the last mile.
Yep.
You get to the Southgate Transit Center and the jobs out in Solon, that last mile, and there's no bus. They drop it, so the last mile, and that's a pilot program. And pull out of Columbus. We need those all over the city. So those are some low-hanging fruit. And I, the benefactor working with corporate America, I caught the rabbit for a long time. Are the bus credit you get, what do you call it? Bus ticket. So as employers, as I'm working with some employers, they need to offer that partnership with RTA. Okay, first let's make the bus stops safer.
Yep.
Let's make them brighter. That's a conversation, maybe a recommendation. Quantify how many lumens? I don't know. How bright does it need to be to feel safe? And then make sure that we're doing that. And then as we incentivize employers for economic development initiatives, how many of them are offering RTA bus passes or a reduced rate or whatever as part of the compensation? That needs to be part of the compensation. Always is some kind of public assistance voucher discount. But those are something and so to your point, Member Sims, is I do, because I don't want to give somebody something they don't want.
Right.
But and so then I got up at 5 o'clock. I could not believe it be that dark. It's scary, freaky dark. I can't imagine walking down my long residential street and then standing there in the dark.
Yeah.
It's scary. And so until I put myself, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then of course the last mile, and again, so those and assisting with transportation, that's not something we can just, companies do that already. And maybe RTA helps us make sure those with the most need are making that available. How do you, and cost it out. It's not that expensive. That takes it away. But for that third shift, because I have so many that are third, I mean, you know my city. It's scary dark. Those are things I think we can fix.
I remember a couple of your constituents that we talked to said exactly what the mayor just said.
It's just, really not dark.
Yeah. With that meeting in Shaker Square, but also some of your downtown workforce. And Eric was whispering to me, these are tangible things we can discuss with RTA. I mean, I had a board member just recently, Deidre McPherson, who's come on board, and we talked about transit waiting environments, and maybe we can just keep moving on that.
We can engage India.
Yeah, and then also, yeah, for sure. Thinking, a place where you maybe hook the chamber. Eddie, I don't know if you're still active with DCP, but hook the chamber a little into a conversation about transit support, and also Annie, who's their job over here. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think those would be some deliverables. Talker, that we could get recommendation,
Yeah.
which we just did.
And then dashboard it, yeah, yeah.
And then,
Yep.
but is
Yeah.
RTA willing to put more lighting? How broad can we make this
Yeah.
bus pass reimbursement thing? I forget what you call it, I'm just having a brain freeze.
No, you're right.
You know.
Bus pass.
Yeah.
Wow, well, thank you.
That's a lot.
This
That's
was
good.
a robust and impactful conversation for me, and I hope so for you,
Yeah.
County Executive.
100%. Yes.
We thank you for the engagement. We need to approve our minutes from our last meeting.
Okay, the minutes from the August 30th, 2023 case meeting were distributed on September 13th, 2023 for your review. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by the Honorable Blackwell, second by Reverend Chalker. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No. Hearing none, the motion carries. I can, with your approval, move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, we're really excited today to have a presentation from the Department of Housing and Community Development. The Director, Sarah Parks Jackson, is here. Very briefly, Director Parks Jackson has over 30 years of affordable housing experience with a career that spans the nation from San Francisco, California to Washington, D.C., and eventually and gratefully back here to work in her hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. She has a master's degree in public administration, is a member of the Cleveland State University's Public Officials Leadership Academy, Class 17. She holds the Economic Development Finance Professional Certification through the National Development Council and is a Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt. Director Parks Jackson currently serves on the Cleveland Housing Network, Housing Capital Advisory Board, and the Cuyahoga Home Consortium, and is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We are incredibly pleased she's serving as the county's first director of the newly created Department of Housing and Community Development. And taking a special privilege, I also have the incredible privilege of calling her one of my sister friends. Also here with her today is who I always say is my birthday twin and very good friend, case member Sheila Wright, who among her many, many, many talents and personal and professional commitments serves as the sole owner of Charging Rhino LLC and majority owner, member, partner, and president of Frontline Development Group LLC. Her independent company is actively engaged as a member of Frontline in various projects, including a significant 4.7-acre endeavor in Cleveland's Huff neighborhood near League Park. Simultaneously, as co-owner and co-developer with WODA, is that the
Woda Cooper Companies?
Cooper Companies, Ms. Wright is advancing another project, Gordon Crossing, a $17 million initiative encompassing a low-income tax credit and market rate multifamily project in the Upper Chester neighborhood. Gordon Crossing is due to start construction in mid-April of 2024. Through this mixed-income venture, Ms. Wright owns the first Black-owned, female-led private company to secure a 9% LIHTC award in Cleveland. She has earned her undergraduate and law degrees from Cleveland State University, as well as an MBA from Case Western University's Weatherhood School of Management. She's a member of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated and is committed and devoted mother to her daughters, who I know intimately, Leslie and Corbin, respectively. Although it's not in my prepared remarks, I do know I did say she has a law degree, because I was going to say, I know she has a JD as well. Thank you again and again, one of my great friends and sisters, Sheila. So I will turn it over to you, Sarah, please.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for inviting me here today. So the Department of Housing and Community Development was actually established April 25th of this year under the leadership of Executive Ronayne. I know some of you are like, I've seen you before. I was here. We were a division under the Department of Development, I think the last time I addressed this body. And now we are a standalone department, which allows me more access to the executive and the executive team when we need to talk about housing. Our mission is affordable housing for everyone. People have this
this idea that affordable housing is just for poor folks. No, affordable housing is for those who can afford it at whatever range they are. So when we talk about affordable housing, we're talking low income, moderate income, we're talking middle market, we're talking students just graduating from undergrad, or in my case, one that's about to graduate from medical school, but still will only be making about $45,000. So mom and dad have to help house him, depending on where he goes. But those are the examples that we look at, that people think if you're in a certain area, or if you've got a certain educational attainment, then you should be making X amount of dollars. And folks are not. Part of the programming that the department currently does is all federal. It is Community Development Block Grant Funds. It is the Federal Home Investment Partnership Act, where we fund a variety of programs and services up to a person's income of 80% of whatever HUD determines that area to be. I am a strong proponent and urge any of you, if you see Secretary Fudge, to tell her that needs to go to 120, because they use gross. And we all know that when you bring your check home, gross is not what you got deposited into the bank. So for the residents in our community in Maple Heights and Garfield Heights and Brook Park or wherever, we need to be able to assist those folks whose gross income is significantly different than their net income, and those are the folks who are trying to figure out, can they pay rent or do they buy groceries, because they have to make those decisions. And that's what we are looking at, and as we look at providing housing services, and it's not just affordable housing. We are signing a contract, hopefully in January, with Cleveland State University, because throughout the county system, there are a number of plans that have housing in them, and you've probably heard of some of them. There's an 8-point reentry plan. There is a homelessness plan. There is a senior plan. I asked Cleveland State, would you please come and internally and externally, so they'll be calling you Colleen and they'll be calling you Mayor as well. Take all of these plans and see where they are similar and see where they are different. We've had conversations about being able to put an individual through a process so that everything that individual is entitled to, it's a one-stop kind of thing. I don't do social services, so I'm always bothering Sabrina with my bright ideas. But you can be on the verge of homelessness, a veteran, and a senior. I don't need to send you to 3 boxes. You need to go to one place so that you can be helped. And she and I have been talking about that. But the first thing we have to do is get Cleveland State to look at all these plans, see where they diverge, see where they come together. My focus as a child of the Cleveland community, I grew up in Mount Pleasant. My cousins lived off of Kinsman, so I'm like Mount Pleasant, Kinsman, Little Lee Harvard. And then when I graduated from high school, and I am a Catholic schoolgirl, I went to what was Marymount, that is now Trinity. My mother moved to Warrensville, so that's my side of town, and that's what I know. And I'm also a boomerang because Nyla said I came back. And I've been here for 30 plus years since I came back. Learning experience in San Francisco and DC was needed for me to come back home and be a benefit to my own community. So I'm going to talk about, again, the programs that we have, again, federally funded. I'm not going to talk about the first one on the slide first, because that's where I'm going to talk about too. So we have a community development supplemental grant, which, Mayor, I would urge you to tell Paquita and Joe to take a look at that and talk to, I don't know if you have the Illuminating Company, because I know Warrensville used both our CDBG grant and the CDSG grant to enhance the lighting around the library and the Y. And if you can work something out, this money will allow you to at least buy the lamps, or I think they bought the lamps and the poles. So, and Paquita or Joe can call me and I'll walk them through it. I'll give them Warrensville's application so they can see it.
Thank you so much.
But those are the types of things that we can do with those funds. They are for community development needs. They can be safety. They can be parks. They can be playgrounds. It depends on what the communities want. CDSG is only for the cities and nonprofits, all of Cuyahoga County. Our Muni grant, which is CDBG funded, Community Development Block Grant, is only for the 51 communities who have opted in and are not receiving their own. So when you go, she's not talking about Cleveland, East Cleveland, Lakewood, Parma, and Euclid. That's because they get their own CDBG money. So a lot of time residents will call us and go, well, my house is in Cuyahoga County, because our programs may differ from what those other organizations have. But we try to work with them too to see if there's something that we could fold them into that maybe we're aware of that a nonprofit organization may have. We have a down payment assistance program that we've had for years that is administered by CHN, Housing Partners. We do fair housing education and testing, and we do financial counseling and foreclosure prevention. We've had a long-standing relationship with legal aid, and it was enhanced when we received our emergency rental assistance funds, because that allowed us to give legal aid money to help folks who were facing eviction. It also has allowed us to pay rent and utility for folks who were affected by COVID, still being affected by COVID. But eventually that money is going to run out, so that's another challenge we have, is how do we continue to be of assistance to those folks who need the assistance when we don't have this emergency money. We have a Heritage Home Loan and a HELP program, which is administered by Key Bank right now, and sometimes Huntington will get a loan through. Those are 3% write-downs. They have no income restrictions. They are processed by the bank. So your credit worthiness is still determined by the bank. So a lot of our middle market residents and higher you will see using this program. We have a homeowner repair program. We do a little lead removal through our health department, and I already talked about the municipal grant. So now I'm going to go back up to the Affordable Housing Loans. We have what is called the Home Investment Partnership Act funds that we get from the Department of HUD that can only be used for affordable housing. Annually, we normally provide about 3 of those loans at $450,000 to developers who are providing affordable housing anywhere in Cuyahoga County. With the ARPA dollars that the county received, the previous administration gave me a little bit of money and said, go ahead and add this to what you have. So we did a RFP. RFP came in from Sheila Wright, and we looked at it, and our home consortium board, who reviews all of my loans, said, yeah, this is a good one, let's go with this. And I have to tell you, in my 20-something career, this is the first time I was ever able to fund African-American female developer. And I about lost it. I think everybody in my family was like, who is she now? Because I was like, oh my God, oh my God. For it to be a woman and an African-American woman. And then I met Sheila and I was bowled over because we have become fast friends. One of the few people that also knows how to reach me wherever I am. On weekends and everything. And there's no, we talk, we text, we do what we have to do. because I am here. We don't just write the loans. I'm here to support all of our developers, because the end goal is that they are successful in the creation of that affordable housing. It's not easy, so I'm gonna let Sheila, if you would please, talk about the good, the bad, the challenges, and all the things you've experienced.
Well, so thank you for having me here to discuss this. Sarah, thank you for your advocacy. Chris, you weren't in place at the time, but anyone here at the county who advocated, who, raised our project up, we really appreciate that. That's what it takes, if you will. I will say what I've come to understand, as opposed to just really focusing on the anecdotes of the bad, is that anyone could be a successful developer if they have enough money. That's what I've come to understand. And being African American, being a woman, there's a layer there. Being emerging, there's a layer there, right? And we hit a few roadblocks, I think, that early on. So there's a project that Naila spoke about, which is the Gordon Crossing project, our 9% low-income tax credit deal. That's farther up Chester in the Newton neighborhood, like down the street from, it's like 101st and Woodward, in that area. But we have a partner developer on that who has the balance sheet and the experience and was able to leverage our local relationships. And it became a true partnership, right? When there was the Sherwin-Williams deal, you heard people talking about ownership at the top. We had a meeting with Zach Reed, and the first thing he said was, who owns this? Well, we own it. So we have ownership, developer fee, and ownership in the land. We diluted it all the way up. That's important because it gives us some decision-making ability, and I'll get to that. But we also have another project down 0.7 miles from the Cleveland Foundation, because I measured it just the other day. A little under 5 acres of land that we were able to secure. They've transferred some of the parcels. It's right in front of League Park, so this little 5-acre piece of earth that has no structures on it. Everything that we plan to develop, no one's going to be displaced in terms of movement. And it is nestled between the Cleveland Foundation and League Park. I don't know if all of you who are local Clevelanders, but if you remember what House Square used to look like before there was investment to stand it up. The fact that my friends, that 800-pound gorilla, moved from downtown and sat on the corner of East 66 and Euclid, and next to it will be the building to house the companies with respect to the $500 million in innovation. My little 5 acres is 0.7 acres, 7 miles from that. You're not going to recognize Huff soon. So with that understood, silly me, I just assumed people would lean in and stack hands. And that's not to say that they didn't. If it wouldn't have been for strong leadership, strong stakeholders, people just speaking out, some of the challenge that we have incurred in that project, which I understand isn't necessarily personal. Some of it is just a course of real estate development because it's risky, it's cash heavy. But if we didn't have the relationships that we have, the people that support us, the people who have their eyes on this, those setbacks could have sent us into bandwidth and financial tailspins that we wouldn't have been able to recover from. It is only because we had a mayor and have a mayor who said, no, green light, go, what can we do to support? We had an executive and have an executive that says, what do you need? And we're accountable. That's the other piece of it. But real estate development in of itself is a tough space to be. I now have a modicum of understanding of why a lot of folks who look like me don't enter that space. But that's just business overall. I've said for many years that not just Cleveland, these markets don't have patient dollars for minorities and women to come into those markets already sourced. Our friends and family raise is a joke most of the time. And so if you have a person who is mentored by a Titan developer, connected politically, support it locally, having the drawbacks that I'm having, then I would just say there may be an opportunity to have a conversation about how do we want to stand up developers in this space. And the reason why that's important to me is because not just representation, but what you're going to do when you get in that space. So when I'll go back to the Gordon Crossing project, or any project, quite frankly, when I talk to professionals who are women, African-American small business who meet that criteria, particularly that the city has come out with now, the professionals don't get the phone calls for projects. The construction players do. But the professionals don't, the architects, the attorneys, the surveyors. We are getting ready to bring on a young man, his name is Elton Cooper. Elton Cooper, to my knowledge, please somebody prove me wrong, is the only Black surveyor in Northeast Ohio. He didn't get a call for a lot of big projects. He gets the call once they're going in, and he can't pivot if you're calling him at the last minute, right? So as Zach Reed was pushing us from the OEO office, he said, your owners, make some decisions. So fortunately for us, our partners are aligned with us in mission to say, we want to make sure we exceed these numbers. But, you know, a lot of challenges, some sunk costs. I had to learn it wasn't personal. There are people who've been doing business with government for years, and they've all gone through it. But I will say, I've been afforded the opportunity to sit in a lot of rooms and see deals happen. So for me, when I see government move a highway bypass for a developer, when I see government build a street for developers and they tell me no, I'm clear it's because you don't want to do it. There's nothing else you can tell me. Because I've seen too much to know what political will looks like when something wants to get done. And so I had to move from being incensed about that and just kind of come to say, okay, how can I help get them there? They obviously are not comfortable with this. How can I help get them there? So in terms of doing projects here, and I will say, you know, in Frontline, my company's Charging Rhino. Frontline is a member-based company. One of the people who is a member of the company is Angela Bennett. Angela has a company called Ziva. She currently works for the Biden administration in the Commerce Department. But we are, you know, we're on the phone. She's in the airline. She's in Guam. We're trying to make it happen. I will tell you, and a lot of people here know my story, so I'm just kind of an open book at this point. Angela and I didn't know each other in high school. We both were young moms. We both had our kids when we were at Shaw High School. We both went to law school. We both went and got our MBA. Albert Ratner is who brought us together. We didn't know each other. So I just told you all those things. Nothing we have encountered, not going to law school, working 2 jobs, not being a mom and something, nothing we've encountered has been as hard as real estate development in our lives. In our lives. That doesn't mean give me a badge of honor. I'm saying, you know, we also have the personalities, never say die, we're not going anywhere, we're going to continue to fight. But this is where real wealth opportunities come. You know, a lot of people would direct us to construction, which is fine, but construction is a line item in my budget. We want opportunities to own. And so what I would say is, there's going to have to be some advocacy. You're going to have to take a risk if you want to see some equity in a place where we don't exist. But the more I think you put that support around them, the more you'll see people. And at this point, Chris knows this very well, at Cuyahoga County, please correct me, we're almost out of land to develop. The places left to develop are the places that have been disinvested. So the land that wasn't worth anything is now going to be worth more based on these anchors. The last thing I will say is, because if I get too much into the bad, I'm throwing people under the bus. And I don't want to throw any administration or any person under the bus, because once the information got to leadership, it was corrected. But I will say that In terms of Gordon Crossing, because we do have a 9% deal, we are getting calls from other markets. We're getting calls from DC, we're getting calls from New York, Houston, Baltimore, come develop there. I will tell you that other markets that are used to high rents have government that are putting more into those projects. We're not used to high rent here, but that's where we're going. And so that's something to keep in mind. The other piece I would say is, in terms of the project down the street from the Cleveland Foundation, at this point, I told my business partner, she asked me to stop saying this, but I'm gonna say it. I'm like, we're not gonna get rich off of this. Albert has told me, you should have been a CDC. I don't know what you're doing. You're like giving everything away, but that's not it. It's just that where we're positioned, the climate of Cleveland, and what it's gonna take to get there, we have to kind of open that project up and have those around who can stack hands take that. That's the only way that's gonna happen. Otherwise, we're gonna be feeding it off to developers who just wanna come in and be down the street from the Cleveland Foundation, and then you're gonna have something different. And so we are going for that project of the 5 acres is called the Allen Estates. And then the Allen Estates, we are looking to apply for a 4% non-competitive right there on the corner of 66 and Linwood. We're calling it Anchor 66 because that's what it should be. And we've secured $5 million from the city. We own the land, so we're open for business. So.
Good for you.
Thank you, Member Wright. I'm deeply moved, and thank you for being with us today. I'm sorry, I'm like kind of overwhelmed and blanking on your name. Forgive me.
Sarah.
Thank
I'm
you.
just Sarah.
Parks Jackson.
Sarah.
I do want to thank you, Sarah, because I know one thing about government, people talk. And Sarah went to bat for us. And we're going to make her proud. This project will start construction in the spring. So we're going to have, hopefully, if he's available, have the county
I already
come out.
committed.
Yeah.
We'll make sure he's
And we're going,
available.
he will recognize the former executive for his support.
I want to be there.
I know you're going to be there.
Right, I just,
Sheila, please.
okay, Sheila, as is Habiba, I am overwhelmed by like everything that you have been able to accomplish in this space that does not look like you and I. And I would hope that you, having had your experience, will just kind of keep that in mind when you have, potential commercial real estate projects coming up within the, downtown Cleveland space or in the surrounding suburbs, because a lot of times, everybody at this table already knows that I sing this song about, like, what about the people that are gonna do the work in that property once it's built? Like, everybody can say, oh, it's been built union, and folks get all this money to create what they want to create, but then the people that are doing the work in those buildings after the fact are lost. Like, there's no conversation about, like, what does security look like? What does janitorial look like? What does food service look like in the cafeterias when the building is up and running? And I would just like to offer that be a consideration when you expand, the projects, because I'm sure you're gonna get more money, and I'm sure you're going to just, I wanna curse right now, but I'm not gonna say that, but I'm sure you're gonna kick butt, and I am hopeful that you will, be that voice for folks that, going back to these good jobs, right? Like, if a project is getting money from the state, the county, wherever else, like, we need to be able to pay that forward and ensure that the people that are doing that work, once the property is up, will be able to benefit from somebody being given a chance and an opportunity to do something great. So I look forward to chatting with you a whole lot more because I'm just mesmerized. But yeah, I wanted to bring that out there as an option because, you know, of all of the conversations that we've had about what types of jobs are available. So yeah, I just wanted to make mention of that.
So I just want to say, and I'll be quiet. First of all, thank you for raising that because I'm blocking and tackling every day about the deal, getting the deal done, and the extent of our lens, our awareness really has been around tenants, right? We were adamant we're not going to concentrate poverty, but we are going to have mixed income. In terms of retail tenants or commercial space, again, 0.7 miles from the Cleveland Foundation and the Innovation District building, right? So, and then we're less than a mile from Magnet. So we've been thinking about what is the opportunity for this land. It's not big, but if you talk about 5 acres in that footprint that's vacant, that's a lot to work with. And so I'm glad that you brought that to me because that's probably something I might have left to my development partner in terms of they're bringing the construction, and they have the expertise. That's the other piece of it, and that's just business. When people know more than you, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage if you don't know the questions to ask.
Right.
And so that was clearly a blind spot that I probably would have got to when I heard there was a problem.
Right. And when you find out it's a problem, it's too late, right?
So I'm glad that you said that. So my business partner, Angela, believe it or not, her heart, she's like her bleeding. Her heart, there's blood, like all of she's bleeding. She's worse than me. She's worse than I am. And you know, if I share this with her, then she's gonna stop the whole train and go back and say hi, which we should. But I do appreciate that and welcome that. Let me open it up. Frontline, the Allen Estates project, Gordon Crossing is trying to up and moving. We have a partner there. The Allen Estates project is open for insight, partners. If this is a hand stacked project, we can get what we want. If I just focus on partners who are like, this land is gold, it's gonna look like what we've seen before. And we have the heart, we have the connections, whatever, but we are only 5 years in. So we are looking for this type of insight so that we can look at this project and say, this is what happens when it's intentional and you have this in play. Technically, a CDC probably would have done it the way we're gonna approach it. Because it's so much, it's a lift. But very few people are gonna be able to afford to live over there in about 10 years. Just from the nature of, and the foundation is working night and day to address that and disrupt that. But that's the nature of economic development. That's how it works, right? You downtown, into the neighborhoods, Times Square, into the boroughs. We have a monster who we love. It's at East 66 at Euclid. That's gonna be bananas. So.
Yeah, can I just also pile on and praise, just a compliment to Sheila and to Sarah and her team. It kind of reminds me of the LeBron James, everything's earned in Cleveland, but everything is earned. I mean, you have to work harder, smarter, because you said at the outset, it's easy if you got a bunch of money and can just plunk down a development, but development in Cleveland is tough. It's just tough. Margins are tough. You know, land acquisition's upside down. Everything's tough. So every inning of the game, you're earning it, you know, and I just say that with a little bit of experience working, but also to our funds finder, Sarah, she finds money under stones that nobody ever thought was there. Between the two of you, I mean, it's a model that we appreciate as a success that needs to get spread more out there, you know, to your point. I mean, more people need to know about it, more people need to see it, and it's not easy in Cleveland. It is easier in other markets, so all the more power to you, you know, for finding the path and staying with it.
So I wanted to ask a question of Sarah, Director Parks Jackson. So when you were so passionate about, oh my gosh, I get to fund Sheila Wright, this is amazing. So I would be really interested in, can't answer this off the top of your head, but maybe in a follow-up. What tools do you use in your current job in leading this really important department for the county that are in pursuit of equity? What tools do you wish you had that you could create more equity through the programming, through the funding, through the partnership building that you do? Can you give us some examples?
I can. With the federal money, it's kind of easy because of the demographic we have to serve. So we have to serve low to moderate income folks, and low to moderate income folks generally are Black and brown people. So when you look at our numbers of who we served, you will see a majority of Black and brown people. What we need more of is the folks who are doing the work. We need lead contractors. We're getting a $8 million lead grant from the state of Ohio. They're just like, here, this is Cuyahoga County's money. You got to apply for it, but we're going to give it to you anyway. We can't. The city's having the same issue. There are no lead contractors. We need people, boots on the ground, that are regular contractors, lead contractors. So, personal story, I have an old house. I have fin radiators. It has taken us all year to just try to find somebody that will look at them. I come from a family of educators, and then it was me. But when they took those skills out of the schools, that became a problem. Everybody's not supposed to go to college. There are people out here that have hands-on skills, and if somebody would take them and mold them and show them and then give them a job, they would be phenomenal electricians, plumbers, painters, and all of that. So that's what I would want, Colleen, with whatever money I have, is to be able to see our youth, our Black and brown children learn a skill that some of them now are not even learning at home. When I first moved out, my grandfather, God rest his soul, gave me a tool belt with a hammer, pliers, a flathead, and that other screwdriver, and went, here, don't call me. Because he had taught me how to do those things. So I just think that the opportunity to fund those type of educational programs so that these folks can have these jobs, so that, as you say, once Sheila gets this building built, there needs to be, my first foray into affordable housing is I was doing property management. Somebody's got to maintain that building. Somebody's got to maintain those units. Who has the skills? Who can you hire? Who can you give a unit to that's on call 24/7 that can fix the flap in the toilet or whatever needs to be done? So if I had my druthers and I had my pot of money that was unfettered over here for me to give to developers to do great things, then I would want my other pot over here to be able to train.
Probably more reason to bring the workforce development team in. They have put construction as one of their sort of cohorted areas of training, but you just underscored every reason why. I mean, you know this as a developer, that it's an ecosystem, and if you got holes in it, then there's leaks. And one of the reasons we really elevated housing in the administration, and Sarah was primed to be that director, is that people said it. I mean, you hear it out in your community, I'm sure, Mayor Blackwell, housing and transportation, mentioned earlier. So we put it out there, but when people talk about a housing shortage in this region, you can attest, it may not be because population is growing, because we're not necessarily, it's because housing stock's getting older and is obsolete. So it's coming down. The land bank's taking down homes, and we got to replace it. But the ecosystem of work matters, you know.
I could just address, looking at our subcommittee list, community. Do you know who does this with developers and maybe like that's me? And so in 2008, with the, and I, so I do the best I can. With the foreclosure crisis, we took a lot of houses down. So what's happening in Maple Heights now, and it's going very, very well, is infill housing because of the obsolescence, right?
Yeah.
So filling the missing teats. And I've got a group of young African-American young men that are building these homes, one home at a time. The last one sold for $249 on Rockside Road. And so if the communications subcommittee package what you just said, you and my new friend too, Sheila Wright, then that is something that someone like me, when these developers come and flood City Hall, one would have 20 lots at a time. I refuse to do 20 lots at a time because he's not vetted. I don't want to do 20 lots in there in all stages. In 4 years, I got a porch here and half. So if there is out of this organization, this subcommittee, that we have these presentations, and somehow package, and as you said, Robin, then how do I use what's been shared here and this position here? Those guys come and I want 15 lots, okay, and had the money. How do we then help them use some less of their money so they can do more? Because this is all of their money, but how do I organize this 5 or 6 of them? Because one tells me they all use the same architect, all of them use the same architect, they all look the same. But how do we package that to help them organize so they use less of their money, or your money? Because the one thing I say is wealth moved out of Maple Heights and hope moved in, right? That's what happened. The people there are people who are hopeful. And so as they become more successful, they can stay in Maple Heights, but they're looking for a different kind of house. Like our family. We're a blended family. Two sons when I married my husband, now I have a daughter. We were in a bungalow, and then we took in his nephew, whose mom was incarcerated. So I've got 2 bedrooms downstairs, 3 bedrooms upstairs. I had a new baby, we're upstairs, and a kitchen you have to turn sideways when the boys come in. Right, that's how tiny it was. I mean, not even 1,200 square feet. Blessed, we've moved and got a much bigger house. And so, but we chose to stay there because my son was playing football and church was closed and parks, and life was great. My dad was right down the street. They want to stay, and we want to diversify the housing, so when they outgrow this house, the situation becomes better, a better house. I just need it organized and hopefully to speak to the organization of this committee. That committee then takes what you say, and then I've got this repository to get those guys.
Well, Mayor, before that, I'm coming out.
Because I don't know how to do it all.
I'm coming out.
All right, so I'm going to organize them, the 6 of them, and they're going to
Tell me when.
Okay, because that's what's helpful to make sure that they're successful.
Yep.
Sheila's got a successful model.
Yep.
How do I duplicate that to empower another group of minorities?
You bring her.
These young men, and you probably know one of them, or a few of them, but these young, and they used to go to Maple Heights High School.
That's awesome.
That's what's so
Invest
sweet
in
about
them,
this
yeah.
story, because they've said that they tried Cleveland, but the red takes it. They can get to me. I'm just on the
Yep.
2nd floor.
Small is beautiful.
But it's overwhelming. But I'm just hoping that we have out of this, that's our success story, that's our deliverable, that's our report out. If we can put case against this kind of development in communities that the wealth moved out and now hope's moved in, but hope is realized into something brand new, now we've got a heck of a story.
Exactly.
And a successful mayor, a very successful mayor.
Win-win.
I am mindful of the time, and I know we have one more, another.
I mean, congrats on your reelection. All right.
But
So that sounds like a date. We got a,
And
Madam
we
Chair?
will get the workforce development,
Yeah.
close to you.
No, I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank you. I have to leave, but thank you. And Joe or Paquita, whoever you want me to
All right.
call, we'll get it set up. I'll come out. I'll drag
Okay, we'll
Sheila
get those
out with
guys
me.
there. in just
Okay.
maybe an hour.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Sarah.
and Director, as
Thank
you're
you.
kind of leaving, I just have to say, there's such intersectionality in where we started the conversation and what the kind of needs and priorities might be and the work that is happening. So it is inspiring that there are things that we can kind of link with and communicate about and help to build and support that really move our goals along as a council. So thank you. Alrighty, let's see. Mr. Yep, we are ready for you, Director Lockett. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no, thank you. This has been a great conversation. It's inspiring. It's also lets you know that there's a lot that needs to be done. But I love the conversation because it also brings up, it's a continuous thing. Because as we started this conversation, I'm dating myself. I remember back with the commissioners, the welfare back to work.
Yep.
And that was some of the issues was the transportation, the access to livable wages were in areas that did not have the public transportation, and also the support that's needed, that when parents are at those jobs, it's one thing to get them there, but when they have to get to their kids because of an unexpected emergency, that support that's needed. And so it's a continuous thing that as our community grows and our economy changes, we still have to make sure that we're providing awareness and access to a diverse population for all of the opportunities. So I've been enjoying the conversation, but recognize there's more work to be done.
And on that point, when our work was on a second 2.0 with Southgate, you know, and there was a neighborhood family service, and now you're creating transportation connections to workforce.
Definitely, a continuous need is not, and I was just having a conversation with someone earlier that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not necessarily a destination. It's like a way of life. It's a virtue. It's a process. It's a continual process of looking at and assessing. So I'll just be quick. Since August, the last meeting, DEI has been focusing on continuing to increase awareness and opportunities. We've worked with Tri-C as part of the amendment. Clerk Bird and Sarah, HR Sarah, on our weekly project team. We work with Tri-C to provide makeup sessions for the town hall sessions from last year, makeup sessions for the management training, and then even the executive leadership team had their cabinet meeting. I also want to thank County Executive and Chief of Staff. You said you've only been here 4 months, but I've already had several meetings, and you've already extended that importance to the leadership on making diversity, equity, inclusion a virtue, a part of our process. So we had those trainings. We also internally did 5 sessions on microaggressions and mental health about making sure our workplace is inclusive and people have a feeling of belonging and that we're addressing those issues there. We had more than 900 employees take part in that. With the fiscal office, we did a refresher training with some of the divisions there. The reason that is important is because there are a lot of internal processes that the county does for supplier procurement, and the payment process that leads to vendors getting procurement, the supplier diversity and procurement, expanding the opportunities for multiple diverse businesses to get those opportunities, but also making sure that we have an efficient, our personnel internally who do those internal processes have access and awareness about how their ability and efficiency impacts the vendors being paid. So we did provide training through the fiscal office, about 4 sessions on that. We're in the process now of doing the contracting and purchasing forecast that's updated semi-annually. That's important because it's the first part of increasing awareness from vendors about those business opportunities with the county. And we're looking to post that within the next week. And finally, it's a team effort for the annual equity report. So each department can focus on their year in review. What did you do this year to advance and embed equity in your operations? And also, what are your commitments for 2024 for similar processes? And that requirement is that it has to be posted by January. So it's the end of the year, but we're busy setting up ourselves for next year to continue that trajectory of work. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Lockett?
I think I have a question related to how do you expand your pool of vendors? Because it seems like you guys have a good system of communicating and really those that are in your pipeline, but around diversifying the amount of vendors that are even part of your network or how many are certified and how that breaks up and to make sure that there's an equitable share of participation.
I'm looking at increasing our collaboration with external organizations. I know we didn't do our usual this year with your organization. Also, when you mentioned Elton Cooper, I was thinking we still have Bimba K and Associates as far as surveyors. So we definitely need to be doing more outreach to make sure that we can get those vendors certified and be aware of who are the new players in their roles. We're still having the repeat certifications of Madison, but there's gotta be other architects. Bimba and Associates, but you mentioned, I wrote down Elton Cooper. We gotta look at getting that information out there so we can increase awareness about those opportunities.
Yeah, and I look forward in the new year to being a partner with you on figuring that out and how do we make it, and not beyond just the certification, how do we really lead onto opportunities and connect them, because I think that's where they're like, oh, I became certified and nothing happened. Well, that's not how it works, right? So doing that in a more intentional way and just understanding the world is different, and we just have to approach it differently.
And one of those opportunities, we did the vendor pitch day in July, and we're looking to do that a couple of more times. And also put in call to have a collaboration with the Cavs about a joint opportunity and having an outreach for vendors.
Yeah,
Again,
I
we don't
think
want to have 50 million
The
meetings a
Cavs did a
year.
collaboration in the past with the Browns and the
Right.
Guardians
Guardians,
around
yes.
doing it. I mean, so that if they do that again, it's a pretty neat collaboration.
Does the county and the city have the same requirements in terms of?
They are similar. So we have, you mentioned Zach, we have almost a monthly meeting between the city of Cleveland, regional sewer, and we're working on reciprocity certification program. The county currently has one with the state, and I know that we're working, and we did an actual comparison of what does it require for regional sewer, what is required for the city of Cleveland, and they're pretty similar. So we're looking at trying to reduce that burden. I know based on conversations, city of Cleveland was moving towards doing a 2-year certification similar to how we moved to in 21. And I believe also regional sewer.
Yeah, there is state legislation about honoring the state as the ultimate. So for governmental jurisdictions to honor if you're state certified, the challenge is being certified with the state is a real pain, and there aren't a lot of folks that are certified with the state. So I think we're working with MBAC, which is the Minority Assistance Center of the state, to figure out how do they facilitate the process so that then jurisdictions could have reciprocity, that they've done their due diligence, but a lot of issues around diverse vendors and being able to certify. There's also like loan products and things that you could only access if you're certified by the state. So it's also a barrier for entrepreneurs, because if you're not certified, then you're not eligible for a lot of programs through the state.
And the director for the state, she was on with that last joint meeting.
Oh, excellent. That's good work.
Thank you, Director Lockett. All right, Director Namisto, am I saying your name correctly?
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sarah Nemistel, Director of Human Resources for the County Executive. I do have some exciting updates to report for DE&I for 2024. So the Executive's biennial budget for Human Resources included funds for a text analyzer software we're going to use to review our job postings and classifications to make sure they're inclusive, free of language that can play into bias or discourage diverse applicants from looking into the county. And we're hopeful that HR, our Personnel Review Commission, and potentially Director Lockett and her team can use this software for our programs. In addition, we receive funds for HR consulting, and we plan to use a portion of those funds to conduct a pay equity study of our non-bargaining employees to basically take a look within our pay grades and our classifications and fix some issues where, one is being paid more than the other but really shouldn't be. So we're going to do the pay equity study and hopefully level the playing field before we develop a compensation philosophy moving forward to address pay for county employees that will provide a framework to ensure that our compensation-related decisions are fair and equitable moving forward. We've also introduced legislation to expand the county's current paid parental leave benefit, which currently is 2 weeks of paid parental leave only for employees who are eligible for family medical leave. So as a result of that, we have full-time and part-time benefits eligible employees who couldn't take advantage of the paid parental leave because they hadn't worked for the county for a year. And as everyone knows, unpaid leave to care for a newborn or newly adopted child is likely not feasible for many employees, especially because under county policies, those employees on an unpaid leave would have to pay the COBRA benefit for insurance. So what we did in our proposed legislation was we expanded the eligibility criteria to anyone who's been here for 3 months, and also the duration of the paid parental leave for 12 weeks of paid parental leave at 30 weeks of pay, where you can also supplement the remaining 10 hours of pay in the week with your own time. And for people who are new and don't have a lot of time in their time banks, can receive donated leave. And that's a change too, because under our current policy, you can't receive donated leave unless you're FML eligible. So this way, we're really expanding that group. So that's also, not just an equity initiative for our employees, but it's also part of our countywide efforts to reduce, high infant mortality rates, which we all know disproportionately affect African American babies. And this way, we're making sure that people can take the first 3 months of life, which are so critical for development. Our employees, almost 4,000 of them do live in the county, can take this time. We are continuing to review our personnel policies with an equity lens to see, what's currently on the books and what needs to change so we can be more equitable moving forward. Also, myself and Julie McNulty from our talent acquisition team recently met with representatives from the Center for Employment Opportunities in Cleveland, together with our Director of Health and Human Services, David Merriman, and our Director of our HHS Office of Reentry, Simeon Best, to identify a potential training and employment partnership with individuals involved with justice. And we have also been involved in discussions with the ODRC to look at employing women as they re-enter society from Marysville. So we're excited about that too. Our DE&I committee internally is still very active. Our team attended a great DE&I conference by Engage Cleveland in October and got some good knowledge from that. In November, they facilitated their third panel discussion in the Can We Talk Conversations That Matter series, where we discussed food insecurity in Cuyahoga County. Panelists included our own Yvonne Conwell from District 7, as well as Denise Cavanis, who serves as our Information Services Supervisor with our Division of Senior and Adult Services in HHS, Vaughn Johnson, who's our Deputy Director of Economic Development, and Von Treese Jones, the Director of Agency Services at the Food Bank. Preparation for that, myself and several members of our DE&I committee did volunteer at the Greater Cleveland Food Bank to have a better understanding of the serious equity challenges food insecurity presents to the county and the residents we serve. And looking ahead, we plan to work strategically with Director Lockett and her team in 2024 to maximize the county's DE&I efforts and to make them more targeted and strategic. So working together, we can make the greatest change possible. And not just for our internal DE&I committee, but HR as a whole, to focus on strategic initiatives for the whole organization. We're also looking into equity initiatives for our wellness program. We're trying to maybe incorporate the crucial conversations going on at HHS to be made available for wellness points next year. And we're looking into establishing employee resource groups in 2024 with our organizational and employee development team.
Wow. That's impressive.
Thank you.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I think our county council has been really great partners on the budget side. I'm not just saying this because Levine's here, but you can tell them, but they really have been. And I mean, on the things that Sarah brought up, it takes two to tango, and I know often Councilwoman Conwell's here and some other council persons, but we I'd say had a fairly seamless budget process, and it was a collaborative one. We've intentionally been trying to create worker benefits, family leave benefits, like broadening the sense of what family is, and it's come with citizen input, but I think well received in administration and council. So,
Chris, Executive
Yeah, no, Chris.
Ronayne, sorry. Where are you in terms of, so many organizations, obviously this is government, are dealing with workforce and the lack of talent. Do you have a wave of people retiring? Do you have a lot of positions? Because I'm thinking people are gonna run to this county when they hear these opportunities. So I'm just wondering, where are you in terms of your spaces and need?
I think I'll bounce that back over to our director, but, and Sarah can speak to that. On a broad level, you were asking earlier, or somebody was asking about how we deal with Cleveland and Cuyahoga County together. I think we're pairing one another in terms of, just understanding that we've got to compete to keep workforce, we've got to compete to attract workforce, and some of the anachronistic policies of yesteryear, I'm focused on broadening, benefits to all. I mean, and getting them quicker to workers. We've been behind on LGBTQ, broadened family concept. We're trying to catch back up and get ahead. We've been, I think, a little behind on when persons become eligible for benefits. We just have to be more nimble with the private sector economy if we're going to be competitive at all of keeping workers. And frankly, full circle to Mayor Blackwell's first comment about poverty. I mean, it is, I get emotional when I think about this, but I see too many of our workers working the other side of the clerks at the grocery store, working a second job at 9 p.m. I saw it this weekend where the woman said, I work with you, and God bless her, she's working the holidays at a retail shop that I stopped in. And I mean, it's not lost on me that people are working second jobs because we're still not paying enough. So I know you appreciate that, but we got more to do. So sorry, I took your thunder.
You made me think of something else we're looking into, a wage floor.
Yeah.
Moving
Right.
forward, where we kind of have a county minimum wage that, is enough.
And
Yeah.
that's right. If I can give a public service announcement, the clerk of courts, we always have openings. Eric, our chief of staff, knows this because he's committed to working with me to increase our wage floor. I probably at any given time have 16, 15 available openings, and we are really, my staff is doing yeoman's work trying to keep up with some of our requirements for filing deadlines, et cetera, because I inherited a very aging staff, and we just can't keep people in the door. So, tell all folks to look on the website and please apply.
And we have a $19 subsidized bus pass. So you can get a bus pass for $19 a
We
month.
gotta lead by example, Mayor.
Yeah. I couldn't think of the word, subsidized.
Yeah, but we gotta walk the walk if we're gonna ask others to do it, so we are walking the walk on this.
Yeah, we have to, a lot of people don't think of the county as an employer. I just,
Fourth largest in Cuyahoga
I
County.
have my young cousin who's turning 30, her friend was still living at home and couldn't get a job in her field and waitressing, and I said, did you look at the county? And she was like, no. And then she had 2 job offers within the next couple of months and was so thankful to me. But it was just, and she's great. She's the kind of person, we want to bring on. But just getting the word out and then all the benefits that we do offer. And I have to say this, Center for Employment Opportunities that works with people who have been involved with justice reentering, it's actually a really neat framework, because part of what you can do too is you're not necessarily hiring this population right off the bat. You can provide a training opportunity, which I think is great because according to them, it allows the hiring management to actually work with them a little bit and see how they do. And if it's almost like a trial period, which we don't really have the benefit of ever. But you can really see, who wants to, work and, who would be good for the organization. And they also provide support too when you partner with them. So if you're having an issue with somebody, you can contact them and they can, go in and coach and do that part too. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
This is exciting. When I was growing up, a county job was a big deal.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is a lot of old school coming back. Some of the stuff we need to drop, but giving people an opportunity to take off with their kids, that's a game changer.
Well, and if I could just make a quick comment, I know we're running out of time, but to follow up on Sheila's comment, across this country in industries that have become more more women and more people of color, over time, salaries decrease. That is just racism in the United States. You look at any industry, and that's the reality. It's very true in the nonprofit sector. You know, industries that have been more welcoming to people of color and to women, then the result is we think they're not as valuable because it's not white men doing the jobs. And so I do think that this internal work that the county is doing is really, really important from a DEI perspective, from an HR perspective, because it changes that, you know, starting to change, you know, if we can get to that minimum floor, like these are valuable individuals doing really important work. And then obviously it helps the business side of the county in terms of keeping people, very, very important to get the job done of the courts. But the model that it sets about, no, just because we have women and people of color doesn't mean we pay them crap. I'm sorry, I'm gonna swear, you were not going to, you are. And it's a model for other governments, you know, cities to say, hey, we need to do this. It's a model for the nonprofit community. So kudos.
Yeah, I echo the gratitude and just impact of the work that you're doing. The example it sets for us in our leadership seats, and the example it sets for other municipalities. What happens when you have robust and impactful conversation is you run out of time. And so I do want to be respectful of the time of the council members and acknowledge that there is some work that we have yet to do to really come back to the conversation around what are the kind of working groups, subcommittees that are most needed in this time in service to the work, in support of the work, I should say, and in service to the broader community as we tackle this issue. I also want to mention, I didn't mention this earlier, but the communications subcommittee has been working closely with Clerk Bird and her team, Latia, particularly helping us to move forward a contracting process for a community survey.
I got an email when we're sitting here. It's been approved by the Board of Control today, so we are good to go.
All right. So the communications subcommittee will be engaging with that vendor, and can we say?
Yeah.
Okay. So Cleveland State University's College of Public Affairs and Education will help us craft, design a survey, and engage the community so that we gain some lived experience input from people most impacted by the harm that racism creates, and across the various intersections, and get their perspective as we continue our work. So very glad that that is approved, and we'll come back around the conversation of the subcommittees, and I'll want to releasing that language from my vocabulary. I want to.
Thank you for calling it out.
Yes.
Huddle, you want to huddle?
I want to huddle with Clerk Bird and get a sense for how we might get this conversation continued since we've run out of time today. But thank you all so very much.
Before we end, much like used to happen with my friend and former chair, Taylor, I will have to send you the GARE update via email. As well as the Ohio legislative stuff I'll send via email this week.
This was a really great meeting, so I just want to say thank you. And to everybody, obviously happy holidays ahead, but it's been really great for me the first year with you guys. This was like to me a capstone. So thank you. Yeah. Between Chair Taylor and you, Habiba, thank you for taking this out.
County Executive, it was a powerful exchange.
It was. It was.
So, congrats. It registered with, I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
different. Duh.